folks, we're back. This is Steve Sanson and Stephanie Phillips with another episode of Veterans in Politics. Today, our guest is going to be Robert Kurth, candidate for Clark County District Court Judge, Department 13. But before we get to Mr. Kurth, Ms. Phillips.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and thank you to our sponsors. We have Dr. Ari Nagy. He's running for Congressional District 3. His website is nagyforcongress.com, and that's F-O-R, nagyforcongress.com. We also have Henderson's mayor, Michelle Romero. She's running for re-election. Her website is votemichelleromero.com, votemichelleromero.com. We also have Cody K. Whipple. He's running for Congressional District 4. His website is codykforcongress.com, and that's the number 4, codykforcongress.com. We also have Dave Marlin. He's running for Las Vegas City Council, Ward 6. His website is daveforvegas.com, and that's F-O-R, daveforvegas.com. And we also have Judge Jennifer Schwartz. She is running for re-election, Department 17, and her website is judgeschwartz.com, judgeschwartz.com. And we also have the Hangars Association, VGTHOG.org. If you want to get in touch with them, Tim Ross is over there. He's got information about the hangar owners groups at these private airports around town, and that's VGTHOG.org. I'm going to skip the other announcements just because we want to talk about the post that we made a few days ago where we were announcing a Northern Nevada Veterans in Politics chapter president. Not of Veterans in Politics, just a chapter. And there's many chapters of Veterans in Politics. Her name is Tanya Freeman. And here's the picture. Mark, you can zoom in on that when you do the YouTube. But we put this picture out. We put this announcement out. And the social media went wild. There's how many comments on that now? 600?
I think over 600.
Thereabout. Mm-hmm. I figured we were going to get some comments about this. And, you know, Tanya is a trans woman. She goes by Tanya, but she was born a man. She's a man. We have eyeballs. We can see that too. And all of you guys out there, instead of reading the post and what the post was about, which was that she is going to run a Northern Nevada chapter for Veterans in Politics so that she can do endorsement interviews in the northern part of this state, just like we do down here. You guys, a bunch of you, went on there and all you talked about was her looks and her makeup and the fact that she's a trans woman. And yeah, I know it goes off. But anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. And then the names that she was called: a creature, a lady boy, a thing, it, Spock, what else? A pervert. All of these names that these people came up with, there were so many hateful comments. I was actually very disturbed. You don't have to like her personal choices. You don't have to like her lifestyle. I disagree with some people's lifestyle, but you know what? That's not my business, nor is it your business. We each run our own lives how we want to. We make personal choices. She has made personal choices. Yes, she was born a man. Her name was Thomas, and she served in the United States Army and the United States Navy. So yes, she is a veteran and was a man when she served. What is the problem that people have that you can be so hateful? And a lot of those people, the comments on that Facebook post, I noticed were conservatives and Christians. And let me tell you something about the Bible. Only the person without sin can cast the first stone, and that is not one of us. So I would say, instead of judging so much, I would say you have more of a problem with yourself than what you do with Tanya. Tanya is a conservative, Republican, Trump supporter. She does not like the boys in the girls' bathrooms, the locker rooms. She doesn't stand for any of that stuff. And if you guys had taken the time to get to know what she stands for, maybe you would get some more information about her. It is stunning, the horrible, hateful comments about her. She is my friend, and I don't care what she does in her personal life. She's going to do a great job for veterans in politics. I have friends on both sides of the aisle and all in between. I will always defend my friends. And I'm not going to cave just because of people's intolerance. That is wrong. And I would say God calls us to love him and love one another. Love thy neighbor. You remember that in the Bible? So, and if you're looking at a speck in someone else's eye, you got a plank in your own eye. You know all the Bible verses? My goodness, I was just stunned and very disappointed. So anyway, I would say don't be so judgmental and get to know Tanya for who she is. You can call her a man. You can be hung up on the fact that she was a man and is a man biologically and all this stuff. That's not the point of the post. And I am just absolutely disgusted with a lot of those comments. And not only that, we have been taking hits and heat for the last few days. This guy this morning sends me a Facebook message. His name is Mark Savan Burke. I think it's how it's pronounced. And he says, "Hey, pervert lover. You live in a far left world where perverts and their pervert behavior are viewed as a good thing. Get your far left head out of your fat ass, idiot." That's the kind of stuff right there. Oh, and then by the way, we looked up this guy. He has a warrant for his arrest in Henderson because he failed to pay over $1,000. If it's the same guy, has the same exact name, and I would say that's a pretty rare name. But anyway, the hate that is coming out of this is just disgusting to me. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Well, you know what? There was a positive that came from that. And the positive is, thank you, Woodrow Johnstone. I accept your challenge.
Matthew Woodrow.
Yeah, I accept your challenge to an MMA fight. We found a venue in July, and I hope you step in the ring with me because it's kind of Christmas came early for me, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for that because I really, 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 really want to do it. I hope you don't change your mind. Okay, Woodrow? Thank you so much.
And we're going to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, and we're going to raise money for charity. So it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. For the veterans groups, you know, the ones that you say I don't help out. Mm-hmm. But you have anything else, Ms. Phillips?
I'll wait till the next show because that rant was kind of long. But yeah, there's more.
Okay. Well, let's get on to Mr. Kurth. He's patiently.
I know.
Mr. Kurth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me today.
Could you tell us about yourself?
Well, I grew up here in Las Vegas. Been here for about 55 years. Okay. During that time, I went to my schooling here. I left for college, but in school, I was in the band. Normal.
Oh, what kind of
normal
band?
Person? I played the saxophone. And played football, varsity football, and wrestled. At the time for one of the premier coaches here in town, El Dorado High School. Mm-hmm. And then went on to college, went to BYU, met my wife, came back home, worked full time. I went to UNLV and finished at UNLV and graduated there in 1989 with a degree in business. Okay. And then I went on to law school in Denver, University of Denver College of Law, and graduated from there in December 1991. Right after that, we had our third child. So we had two children while we were going through law school with the support of my wife, and who I'll be married to for 40 years this year.
Congrats.
So thanks.
Happy anniversary.
That's a long time.
Yep. I made a good choice. So
I'm going to give her a shout out.
Yeah. What's the shout out? I love you, and I appreciate you standing by me all these years.
Okay.
Anyways. Then we have 4 kids. So I have 5 grandkids now. I've been practicing law for 34 years. Been on my own since about 1996.
Explain what that means.
Well, I've been in my own law practice. So I started my own practice, the Kurth Law Office in 1996. And in doing that, I've represented people from all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, income levels, men, women, fathers, grandparents, mothers, just everybody, every type of person or gender classification, everything during that time. So in my practice, or do you want me to talk about that, my practice?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I do civil law and I do criminal law. I do probate. So I can help somebody if they get in an auto accident case, or slip and fall. I can take that through civil litigation if it's not settled and needs to go to court. Okay. If they get in trouble with the law, then I represent them in that, whether or not it was a...
So you got a criminal background?
I have a criminal background. And probate, if they needed a probate done, somebody died in their family, then help them with probate litigation. I'll create a will, a trust, powers of attorney for them. I do real estate, commercial litigation. We need to do that. I'll create a business for them, an LLC, buy-sell agreement if they need to do that, or if there's some kind of business dispute. Let's see. I used to do bankruptcy. I stopped doing bankruptcy years ago.
Why is that?
Just the law changed around, I think, 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And I do a lot of things. So I just decided I wasn't going to do bankruptcy anymore at that time. But just had a large practice. I've appeared. I'm licensed in Utah also. I've been licensed there since 1994.
Why Utah?
It's just close. I thought one day maybe I could end up there, and it's close right here, southern Utah, if I had any cases. And I've had a few cases there. But I've appeared before the Utah Supreme Court, the Utah Court of Appeals, the Nevada Supreme Court, the Nevada Court of Appeals throughout the years. And being in my own practice, managing that, having my own staff for a long time.
So you signed the front of the check?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a BS in administration, a JD, University of Denver?
Yes.
Yeah. Criminal law, family law, probate, personal injury, DUIs. Familiar?
He knows it all.
Arbitrator for the 8th Judicial District.
True. I have. I've been. I was appointed, or I was put on the panel in 2001. So it's been 25 years. They randomly submit cases, to the arbitrators. So I hear those. They had a limit of $50,000. Now the limits are $100,000. So there's going to be quite a bit more cases going through that system, right? Hear and decide just as a judge does, determine the evidence, make a decision, and they have the opportunity if they want to appeal that or not.
Okay. You're also a former small claims court referee, child support hearing master. Yep. So you're familiar with being on the bench?
I am, yep. I acted as a pro tem small claims court judge where you'd have to hear a lot of cases in a small amount of time and make a decision, and also as a child support hearing master.
You're also a mediator with extensive litigation background? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Adjudicated professor, legal studies at Northwest Career College?
So I was I can't remember.
You're leaving
the years
stuff out, Mr. Kurth.
Well, yes. Yeah. So at Northwest Career College, they needed an adjunct professor, and I was helping that with the paralegal studies, and I helped them to start the criminal justice program that they had there, where people could go and you could get an associate's degree in paralegal studies, and then an associate's degree in criminal justice. I think I did that for about 5 years, probably a little bit longer than that. While I was still managing my practice, I would go there and teach and then help the students. I found that very rewarding, to help other people and help them to be able to achieve more success in their lives.
And My Vegas had you as the top 100 lawyers in 2016?
Yes.
How was that?
I don't know how that selection process works. I don't apply for it all the time, but I was honored to receive that.
So you also did the trial by peers juvenile diversion program?
When I first started practicing, I think that was it was 1992. I think that might have been around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh, boy.
Or it was sometime soon after that.
You know what they say, if the glove don't fit, you must have quit.
Right. I just remember that because I remember it coming up because the trial by peers was a program that the Clark County Bar Association started where you could bring juveniles in and they could act as, high school students, prosecutors, and defense, and we would help them with them. We would put on trials that could get sent over to us that would be agreed from the juvenile system.
Las Vegas Zoological Society board member?
I am.
Explain that.
Okay. Well, we have a Las Vegas Zoological Society, and I've been on the board for a number of years, but we're trying to get it together where we can have a world-class zoo in Las Vegas for the community. And it's a process trying to get the land or the funding. Yes, Phoenix has a very nice zoo.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a zoo here over on Rancho? I think it was.
I don't know if you would call it a zoo, but they did have something that for a while that shut down. But we're looking at a world class, like 100, 150 acres, that we can put it on.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So you're hands-on. You have so many different judicial roles: arbitrator, referee, hearing master. You should be a judge already.
I'm working on it. Right? We're trying to get there.
You have extensive experience in criminal law, family law, probate, civil matters. So you should be taking the bench running, don't you think?
I think so. I would be prepared to go forward, and as soon as we start, there's going to be some administrative things like that. But I'm familiar with the criminal side and the civil side, and we don't know where this is going to be. Right now, it's a business court department, that Judge Denham was handling, but I've handled that too, and large business litigation.
And it looks like you have a lot of judicial temperament. De-escalate conflict, move cases efficiently, reduce backlog. It sounds like you're a judge in the making.
Those would be my goals, to bring that to the bench and to bring that demeanor, help people to get their disputes resolved. It's difficult when you're in a dispute. It affects everybody, whether or not it's a criminal, whether it's a civil, if it's a business. You're pulling in your different major people that work for you, and their depositions are being taken, and it's a lot of stress on everybody. Not along with the economic impact of it too.
Do you think that attorneys should be specialized? Because some attorneys are just civil, and they go into a judicial seat and they have a criminal calendar, or vice versa, and they haven't practiced in that area. Do you think that should be a requirement, that they should have that experience first?
Well, I don't think you could make it a requirement, but I think that it would be beneficial. Because I know that if you practice and all you've practiced is criminal law, for instance, and now you have this civil caseload and you're dealing with questions about the statute of frauds and other items, then I think sometimes it's more difficult. There's more of a learning curve, I would imagine, at that time. Go ahead. Go
ahead, Mr.
Kurth. I don't know that you could put a requirement on it, but I think it should be. If you're getting appointed, if you're getting elected, it's a little bit more, difficult.
Well, they put the requirement on that you have to have 5 years for immunity, right? You have to be 10 years for district court.
Yes.
15 for Supreme. So there are certain requirements. But I've had a lot of people bring that up, and I've thought about that. And just like a doctor specialized in that, particular field where they practice. Same thing for attorneys. Maybe that should be something so they have the experience.
I think that's what benefits me or in that race. And I think that's why I'm
you have it all.
The best candidate for that position.
You have it all.
So how do you ensure neutrality after decades of advocating for one side?
Well, advocating for one side, I don't think I've...
As representing the client.
Representing a client. Well, are you talking about a criminal side or the civil side? I guess both. But
both.
You want to, like on the criminal side, you're representing everybody you represent. You have to zealously represent, right? You have ethical rules, and you have to do it to the best of your ability.
Right.
So, but we're there to try to achieve justice, too. And on the civil side, there's a lot of factors that can be involved in that and sway it one way or the other. I don't think there's any part with being impartial, is whether or not I've represented businesses and I've represented individuals against businesses, in companies. So I wouldn't have a problem doing that. I think a judge needs to apply the law to the facts. So pay attention. And it's not the judge to, help one side or help the other side. They have to present the evidence. They have the burden of proof.
So how do you distinguish a good judge from a good attorney?
Well, an attorney is an advocate. So that's the easiest way, right? An attorney is going to be advocating. A judge cannot advocate. And a judge should not be legislating from the bench and should not be, pushing one side or the other or making their rulings in a certain way that is, has that appearance or is in fact doing it. So you're not an advocate as a judge.
Right.
Okay.
So how would you handle high volume dockets without sacrificing due process?
Well, you can never sacrifice due process. I mean, that's ultimate. If you sacrifice due process and people's rights, then you might as well not be on the bench. You might as well not be a judge. But I think you can still do it efficiently. You can make sure, like if you're canvassing a criminal client and do they understand their rights and have they waived their rights, you can go through that and different judges have different paces, that you can make sure they understand. You can ask them in the beginning, hey, are you a veteran? Let me know. Is there any, maybe you're eligible for this Veterans Treatments Court or some other specialty court project that we have. But you just have to be prepared. That's the main thing. So if you're prepared and you understand the law, then I think it's going to help one to efficiently manage their calendar. Maybe you're asking less questions and you're moving things along. You have to give everybody their day in court, but you don't necessarily have to let one issue go on and on and on.
If you get a criminal calendar or even civil criminal, you have both, and the DA, they come up with this deal to let a defendant off, and I'm talking about that one case that they gave probation to that guy that killed the 17-month-old baby because they didn't have a proper, the evidence. Apparently they didn't think that they were going to be able to convict him through trial because of lack of evidence or whatever the thing was. But when the DA comes with a deal that they have made for probation, especially a case like that, how would you handle something like that? Would you always accept that, or would you kick it back and say, you know what, you guys need to come up with a better avenue or a better deal?
It just depends. It depends on for the most part, a judge is going to accept the deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because the judge isn't intertwined in all of the facts. You see a basic, like a police report, that involves a lot of hearsay and information, but you don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. Like what else is involved with this victim? What else is involved with this defendant, the perpetrator of the crime? What evidence is there? What other mitigating circumstances are there? And the prosecutors are, they're diligent in what they do. And they're trying to go down and you can't have a trial on everything. The court system couldn't do it. You have to have plea negotiations. There's no way the court could handle all the cases.
There's a backlog.
Yes, because of the backlog. And but when they're doing it, they're really in a better position to know. Like there's a reason deals are done or things are reduced sometimes. Was this done properly, or there's a question about this witness, or is this witness going to appear, or what is their testimony? There's a lot of things behind the scenes that the judge doesn't know, and nor should they know, right? Now, sometimes you could look at something that could seem to be so egregious where I do recall Judge Mosley, sometimes you could go in the back and have a discussion and make sure whether or not he's a very good judge, excellent, but is he going to accept this negotiation? Maybe you need, okay, why are we doing this? Or, if it's something that looks like it's pretty, on those particular circumstances, like you're mentioning, maybe. I'm not completely familiar with that case, nor could I comment on that anyways.
Is that part of a judge's discretion that they are able to kick that back and deny it and say, go back and try again? Is that up to them, or does that depend too?
It's completely up to the judge. So, matter of fact, the witness is canvassed, not the witness, but the defendant is canvassed by the judge and made sure that they know. They ask them, you understand this is a deal here, and you made this negotiation, or between your attorney or the prosecutor's office made this, but you understand that it's in my discretion. I don't have to uphold that, right? I don't have to agree to it. And, and then the defendant has to agree and understand, acknowledge that's the case. It's in the court's discretion. Because at sentencing, they could, the judge the district attorney could agree to say, for instance, I'm going to stand silent and not make any recommendation as to jail or prison time. Mm-hmm. Well, usually that means, okay, they don't oppose probation. So then usually the court's going to look and say, okay, they're not opposing probation. They're not arguing for it. So the court's more likely to grant probation, right? Mm-hmm. But what kind of sentence? Are they going to max the person out? Is it going to be, not max them out? It's going to be a minimum sentence. And some people are confused on sentences that I've talked to. They're, well, how come they only got this much time? And I explained, well, if the most you could get is 10 years for a crime, let's say it's a 1 to 10, then the most you can sentence that person to is a 4 to 10. So the bottom part can't be more than 40% of the top part. So they can do 4 years, right? Now they can actually do, if it's a lower felony, category C, D felony, then they could actually do less time than 4 years before they could be eligible. But that's all with the law, the legislature, credits, things like that.
So how has your experience as an arbitrator shaped your judicial decision?
I think being an arbitrator has helped me extensively because, we hear the cases. A lot of times there's a dispute as to liability, who's at fault. Most cases are accident cases, right? Whether auto accident or slip and fall. But I've had some extensive business cases too, where something happened and where they're, claiming this person caused this or, with it. And you have to consider the evidence. You have to read the briefs. Right. The rules of evidence are more relaxed, so more things are allowed in. But people make objections, and you roll on the objections and you consider it, you apply the law to the facts and issue a decision, just like a judge would in justice court, district court. It's just under matter of fact, as an arbitrator, the limits are 50,000, right? And in justice court, the limits are 15,000 now. Well, now the arbitrator, the limits are 100,000. So
how about when you were a small claims court referee? How were you going to bring that experience to the bench?
I think that's, that was, I remember doing that. It was very fast. You're lucky if the person got 10, 15 minutes for their case, So you were managing a very large caseload at that time and trying to direct, and, people are in small claims, right? They're usually not represented by a lawyer, mm-hmm. and direct them to the specifics so that you could get the specific facts from them and make a decision. So I think it's, and you're dealing with pro per litigants. You still get pro per litigants in the district court too. And now with AI, you see a lot more things going on and people presenting things.
So what safeguards would you put in place to avoid even the appearance of impropriety?
Well, thinking of a safeguard, I just wouldn't, if there was any chance or
a big recusal list or?
I don't think I'd have to have a big recusal list. No, but if somebody came before me, I've had to recuse myself before in the district court. Okay. If I recognized a name, okay, let me check this out. Are you related to, or who is this? Okay, no, I can't do this. I can't handle this case right now. So, and sometimes if you just had an acquaintance or, you just happen to know somebody because you've seen them at an event or something before and disclose it to both sides. Okay, hey, I don't know. I don't go to dinner with this person. I haven't, we don't have a personal close relationship, but I do know them or I do know about them. So if you feel comfortable with me handling the case, I'll go forward. But if not, then I'm happy to recuse myself.
What about those that have donated to campaigns and the attorneys walk into, the courtroom and, oh, that person gave me however much money. How does that affect you at all?
I think you have to, it's not a good situation, right? It'd be better if you didn't have to. I don't like to have to try to ask for donations or contributions. It's difficult to self-fund everything. And I think you have to recognize, is this going to affect me at all? And if you think it's going to affect you at all, then you have to say, well, I can't do your case. I can't handle it. Just like having a bias, like everyone can say, well, I don't have any biases, but everybody was raised a certain way. Everybody has certain biases. You just have to recognize what those are and make sure they don't affect your decision making in any manner possible.
So how do you think you stand out from your opponents in this race?
Well, I don't like to necessarily talk about myself. I can explain my experience. I don't like to sound like I'm not a boastful type of person. But in this case, just like I think Stephanie asked me earlier about if there should be a decision, should you have to have criminal experience and civil experience, and we don't know. This district court right now, the position right now that's being held by Judge Denon is a business court. But I know that there's not a decision, is my understanding, on what's going to happen. And I see judges having a split docket. All they had practiced before was criminal law, and now you're bringing your civil cases to them.
Right.
And which is, I've seen I think there could be a better system than that. So I think my experience in this race, I'm the only person in this race that has the criminal experience and the civil experience. And not just civil, but family law. Now, family law is a district court too, and this isn't necessarily handling that, but I can tell you there's cases that come from the family law or that disputes between people, and then even a contract saying, hey, we own this property together, or that's coming before the district court. And the understanding, and then the probate litigation, and dealing with all the people throughout all these years and seeing what they go through and running to, I can be in a municipal court in North Las Vegas or Henderson, then I could be in a justice court in one of those. I've appeared in court in Reno. I've appeared in court in other parts of the state. And you see how the different judges react and how they handle their caseloads. And I think that benefits me the most and I bring that experience to the bench on the temperament that I've seen. I've been before a judge that they can be, happy with you in the beginning, and maybe you're with them in the afternoon and they're not so happy, and I wouldn't forget where I came from. I know how difficult it is and how difficult litigation is, how difficult someone being in the justice system is on them. And so having all that experience, knowing how it all works together, because it really does. If you're trying to judge whether or not somebody is being truthful and honest with you and candid, and I'm familiar with a lot of different areas of law and how things work there. And if they make a statement, then I'm going to be able to see through that. As I like to say, I can see through that muck in the mire, right? To find the clear path to go and make the correct decision. That benefits everybody.
What do you do when you think that your client you're defending them and they're a defendant in a criminal case? What do you do when you think they're lying to you?
Well, you can't let usually in a criminal case, they're not testifying, but you can't allow somebody, if they're going to, there's different problems with that.
They incriminate themselves maybe.
It's easy for someone to incriminate themselves.
Yeah.
Just to say that they were at a certain place at a certain time, and if something happened at that place and at that time, that definitely could pose a problem for them. But that doesn't necessarily mean they committed the crime, right? You have to prove it.
So, Mr. Kurth, that's a nice tie you got on there. I like it.
Thank you.
Why do you wear it?
I'm very patriotic. I've always been patriotic. I stand for the flag. I say the pledge. When they sing the national anthem, I put my hand across my heart. I appreciate the veterans and those people that have kept our country safe, throughout the years. That's one reason why I got into the law, and when you have something good and you help somebody, and then you feel like, wow, this was a good day, and this is the reason we have this justice system, to protect us, and it makes you feel good about yourself and the system we're in. So I'm proud, I'm proud to be an American.
So you believe in the Constitution?
I believe in the Constitution. 100%.
Do you have a particular favorite amendment?
Well, I wouldn't say I have a favorite amendment. All the amendments are very important. You have the First Amendment, your right of, your freedom of speech, right? Your freedom of religion. Your Second Amendment is extremely important.
Right.
too, right? Your right to bear arms.
Are you going to carry on the bench if you become a judge?
When you become a judge?
When you become a judge?
I'm not sure what the rules are on that right now. So if
You
that's
can, right? They can.
Well,
We ask everybody that
So
question.
I'm gonna shine it up.
Judge Mosley did.
I
right?
would. I would hope that I can rely on my, the marshals, right,
Yes.
and everything there, right? But
So,
yes.
Mr. Kurth, how long you and I known each other now?
I don't know. I've known you for. I can remember when I first met you. It's been quite some time
What
ago.
year was that, you think?
Oh, I don't know what year that was. I wonder when it was. I don't think it was in.
15, 20 years, maybe?
Yeah. Well, probably. Let's see. 2010. Yeah, probably 20 years.
How come I've never seen you pissed off?
Right.
How come I've never seen you upset?
I try to control my emotions. I mean, I think you have to de-escalate a situation. You don't need to get into that. And with anybody else, it doesn't help the matter. It doesn't resolve it, right? And I think one thing that I realized is if somebody's being difficult or contentious, what happened to them today? I mean, maybe. Who knows what happened? Maybe they had a death in their family. Maybe they had some financial crisis. Maybe they had a problem in their relationship or one of their children, or, it's not, you realize that people are going through a lot,
So you've been in and out the courtroom for a good, 30 plus years, right?
34 years.
34 years. In the past 34 years, what have you gained from the law?
What have I gained from? I've gained, the respect of the law. I mean, I've seen, that's a difficult question. I would say, what have I gained? As I was talking about before, when things go right or you see something that turns out the way it should turn out, because it makes you feel so much better, and when you, but sometimes the problem is like economics. Economics I've seen and lack of education can have a disparate impact on people that are involved in the law.
True.
And what happens? Lack of financing. Yep. Lack of finances, having the proper representation, given the right advice, making decisions on how they should do things. I mean, there's a lot of protections that the law gives us. And if you want to take advantage of it, you see some people that abuse some of those protections, you would say, right? But people should know these are my rights, or this is what I have. And it'll help them in the future and help them to get through the situation that they're in at the time.
So what do you want this? What do you, Robert Kurth, what do you want to be a judge in the Clark County District Court? Why?
I think we should have members of the judiciary who are experienced and who care about the community. They're not just caring about, I want to be a judge, I want to have prestige, or, I'm not saying that everybody is like that or all the judges are like that. Obviously they're not, but, occasionally, I'm not saying that. So, but, I'm going to remember where I came from. And I'm going to remember that.
Where's that? Where did you come from?
I came from a blue-collar working class family. My parents, my dad, my mom taught me how to work. And, and I did that work in the summer, and I picked up rebar, wire in the yard, and in 100 and some odd, 110 degrees, steam cleaning, or I won't say steam cleaning, but the grease off of a forklift, or work full time, bending rebar, fabricating full time while I went to college for about 15 credits a semester at UNLV while I was married. had one child and another child. And so I just came from somewhere where there's no excuses, where you accept responsibility. You learn how to accept personal responsibility, but you also have compassion. You have compassion for others and know what they're going through.
Compassion.
I think it's important to have compassion. I mean, you can't let it come to an extent where you're going to, if you feel like, well, this is a tough decision, I don't really want to make this decision, but the law is saying I need to make the decision, then you need to make that decision, even though it has this impact that you don't necessarily agree with on someone. You have to follow the law.
Are you going to be that type of judge that explains themselves on why you reached that verdict? Therefore, you could probably get rid of a whole lot of appeals and all that if people understand exactly how you arrived at your decision.
I would do that, and I think you always have two sides. There's always two sides, and there's three sides of the story. But I think one thing that would help, and the kind of judge I would be, is I would not be afraid to rule on a summary judgment motion. Okay, and I would not be afraid to give direction as to what I see with the evidence and the law now, which I think can help sometimes. Like when I'm an attorney and there's two parties there, if a judge could give you a little bit of direction on how they're seeing the evidence or what we have here, a lot of times that can help the parties to obtain a resolution. Because overall, as a judge, you're going to make a decision. But in litigation, people are more happy and people are more satisfied if they come to that resolution themselves, right? They're more willing to accept the consequences. I mean, sometimes, you just have to make the decision. There's that dispute. They can't determine, well, we don't agree that the damages should be this much, or we don't think that this person's liable, or, or they committed this crime or whatever it is. They committed this tort, they breached the contract. So, but I would be one that would explain, my decision so they could, and that's what I do as an arbitrator. I try to give a detailed decision, and I tell them, look, you have the opportunity to appeal it if you want to appeal it. I'm not going to be King Solomon. I'm not just going to, what they say. I hate to use that term, but, make that decision there. But I'm going to explain it. And I like to give them so they feel like they got everything, that they feel like they got all the due process. They feel like I heard all the evidence and I considered it, so they could consider that going forward.
And what do you want people to know about you?
I want them to know about me. Yeah. I want them to know that I care, that I actually do care about our community. I mean, I grew up in this community. I remember I didn't know anything about, my son was going to play soccer. I never played soccer. And then he started learning, he was like 5 years old. And then, so I learned about soccer. My father-in-law knew some things. I found out he coached. And then I ended up becoming on the board, and then eventually the president of the Sagebrush Youth Soccer League, to try to help to make that better, to make it better for everyone involved, the parents, the players, the coaches, involved in scouting, trying to help people and trying to,
youths.
Pardon me? Yes, the youth. Yes. I mean, it's so important. I mean, the youth are our future leaders, right? I mean, they're going to be taking our positions here. They're going to be controlling the businesses, they're going to be controlling the government. So it's important that they learn, and learn about taking personal responsibility, right? And have ethics and morals, and so that's how I grew up. And I probably am past your question there, but and I'm going to bring that here. I'm going to bring that to the bench. I'm going to bring somebody who cares, somebody who's not going to legislate from the bench, somebody who's going to uphold the Constitution that our founding fathers put in place, in the greatest country that there is.
Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Kurth, we're running out of time, but Mark is going to zoom in on him, and this is your moment to tell folks why they needed to go to the voting booth and vote for you, and please give them your contact information as well.
And tell them about Tuesday.
Yes, if you have any upcoming events.
Okay, thank you. My name is Robert Kurth. I'm running for District Court Judge, Department 13. It's a countywide race. Everyone in the entire part of Clark County, from Mesquite to Laughlin, votes for this position. I'm asking for your vote and your support. I believe that I have the criminal and the civil experience necessary to be the best judge for you. If you want a judge in that department who's going to listen to your concerns and respect your rights, to protect our families, be tough on crime, be fair, and uphold our Constitution, then I'm asking for your vote and your support for Robert Kurth for District Court Judge, Department 13. You can check out my website, robertkurth, KURTH.com. You can look on there. It has my number. You can try to get a hold of me if you have any questions, or send me an email. And I'd invite you to come out to our to my campaign kickoff on Tuesday, March 24th at 5:30 at Neupitt's Decatur on Decatur Boulevard. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for your time, for your support, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Kurth. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Folks, that's Robert Kurth, candidate for Clark County District Court Judge, Department 13. I've known Mr. Kurth for a good part of 20 years, and he has helped me in several cases throughout the years. He's always there. He's always want to help. He's always eager, and he has a very, very, what they call that, monotone.
Great temperament.
Great temperament.
Yeah.
He'll be a great asset for the Clark County District Court bench. And I implore you to go and visit his website and get to know a little bit more about him. Give him a call, chat him up, check him out for yourself and see what your decision would be once you go to that voting booth and check that box. This is Steve Sanson, Stephanie Phillips with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.